Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Guys, we got to get caught up on a couple of things because court is postponed till Monday. But if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, right? So that way anybody who's getting caught up on this matter has these videos to refer to. Welcome back to my channel. I don't know if Miss HLS is here. I saw Kevin Durant's hairbrush come through. Hi, Miss HLS. Hey, boo. Hey. Miss HLS, I missed your question as I was exiting my last live. You were asking, did I have on a denim jacket or was this a shirt? And this is a good old Wrangler, good old Wrangler men's denim shirt that I absolutely love. And I do wear it jacket style. I wear it shirt style. I wear it like I'm a denim girl. So yes, I just have on a black wife beater. I'm like, wait a second, is this the right tank top, tee, whatever you call this? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean, right? So yes, thank you for asking. I did see as I was exiting and it was too late to answer because I was thrown off because these new enhancements in StreamYard, you can actually do, I'm not going to say too much because girl, my husband will call me and say, it's to be sold, not told. Stop telling, you don't give out like that. Okay. So I forgot to do something in the new enhancement. So my my automation did not run because it was operator error. I'm gonna say it like that. Okay. We all know what operator error is. I did set up a live for an hour, so we don't have a lot of time. Let's go ahead and get into it. Look at me in the camera. I'm having so much fun right now, guys. I love all my new little enhancements. I love wearing men's dress shirts. Yes. I adore denim everything. This is it. Yeah. Denim is love it. I need to I'm probably gonna give myself I don't know, maybe one more week and take these out. Because I've only did it for a month. Normally I'll keep my braids a little longer, but I don't know. By the time I take this out, it'll probably be 6 weeks in full disclosure. I'm probably right now I'm almost at a month because I feel like I got these done like the day before my birthday. So can you believe it's been a month already? Anyway, let's get into it. Let me not waste time because you love them too. Thank you, boo. You're so sweet. You are so sweet. Thank you, Florida lady. Hey, boo. I said Florida lady. Bible lady. Bible lady, that's aka Florida lady. Bible lady, I hope you guys are good. All of my Florida people, we sent prayers, well wishes, everything your way. Everybody within the sound of my voice, we are sending all kinds of positivity, good vibes, everything your way. Just be ready. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready, right? Okay, guys, I did a search and we already know what that's going to pull up. Okay, so on your screen, we see Suitcase Sarah. We see the Honorable Judge Cranick, and we see Mr. James Owens. Okay, let me take them off the screen because we've got business to handle. I was just trying to set the scene. Let me see. Let me take them off the screen because I need for y'all to see what I'm getting ready to get into. Real quick, if you do a search for Sarah Boone in the record search right here, click, you do Sarah Boone and just do criminal felony. Her felony comes up from 2018. Why am I bringing this up? Well, I thought it would be interesting because we've seen it. The body cam footage is out here, but Sarah had a battery by strangulation. Sarah clearly has a history of a problem with her hands. George was not charged with this particular offense at the time. And she was out on a cash bond. Hold on, let me let you see this. Counts battery by strangulation, dating violence, or other charges as may result therefrom, and the defendant shall appear in said court from day to day, term to term, and shall not depart. Okay, this was part of her bond. Okay, girl, she had a $250 bond. Okay. Let me go find the charge. Hold on. I got it on here. But that was her bun, right? Let me get to the complaint. Hold on. I thought I had pulled this up, but my bad. Uh on July 25th, 2018, at the hours of 1:52, so that would be in the morning, because if it were the afternoon, then it would have been 13:52, right? So sounds like it was early in the morning. I Deputy Sheriff Zito responded to 4847 France number 3, Orlando, reference a male kicked female in the eye. Reference a male kicked a female in the eye. I later determined this to be an aggravated battery by strangulation and battery case, both being dating violence. Upon my arrival, I spoke with Sarah Catherine Boone, defendant slash victim two. Sarah verbally stated that she was at an unknown bar earlier in the evening when she asked an unknown male for a cigarette. Her boyfriend, George Torres Jr., defendant two, victim one, of 1.5 years. Notice this is 2018, and 1.5 years would make them probably together since 2016. I think her and her husband only got a divorce. Like, was she cheating on Brian? Like, I mean, Sarah's been a problem. Sis a problem. Okay. So her boyfriend of 1.5 years, let me find my spot. Of 1.5 years became upset since she was talking to another man. I feel bad for George, but George, the thing is that she had a husband, didn't she? Maybe she was separated because they were already living together, but I don't know that her divorce was final from her husband. So Sarah asked another man for a cigarette. Now, George has to remember, you get him the way you lose them the way you get them. So at the end of the day, it's quite possible that he was feeling away because he knows what type of female he's dealing with, right? Anyway, of 1.5 years was upset since she was, let me put this to the other side because it looks weird. Okay. All right. Let me do this, and then I guess I'm gonna, if I do, all right, let me just park down here for a minute while I'm reading this. Was upset for talking to another male and left the bar. Of course he's going to be pissed. Sarah verbally stated she was at an unknown bar, unknown, maybe because she was already drunk, earlier in the evening when she asked an unknown male. She was at an unknown bar and asked a unknown male for a cigarette. Her boyfriend, George Torres Jr., of 1.5 years, became upset since she was talking to another male and left the bar. She's the type of woman, look, she really is trouble. I'm sorry. She's very much, no wonder his family did not like her. Okay? We got to get into this. I feel like I heard about this, but I never read the narrative. Became upset since she was talking to another male and left the bar. They both went back to their residence located on Franz Lane, number 3, and continued verbally arguing. Sarah was dragged upstairs by George, and she was kicked her. Sarah was dragged upstairs by George, and she was kicked her in the right eye. I'm just reading exactly how it is. And she was kicked her in the right eye using his right heel. Well, damn. It's like that's a stomp, kind of. Okay. Sarah was unable to describe how she fell to the ground and or how she was dragged upstairs by George. Sarah refused medical treatment. Sarah refused to write a statement, verbally argue. Sarah refused to write a statement and or sign any dating violence paperwork. After I spoke to Sarah, I spoke to George. George verbally stated they were both at their residence, verbally arguing and have been consuming alcohol. They have been dating for 1.5 years and reside together for 1.2 years. George attempted to go upstairs to avoid Sarah. While George was walking up the stairs, Sarah reached towards George's throat using both of her hands. Sarah placed both of her hands around George's throat and applied pressure to the extent that George was having difficult time breathing. George was sitting on the steps and started kicking towards Sarah in the attempt to get her off of him. George believes he might have kicked Sarah in the face, but was not sure. George believes so he was defending himself. And then she said that he basically dragged her and like stomped her in the face. But George said that he kicked her because he was trying to basically get her up off of him. George believed that if he did not kick Sarah off of him, she would have made him incapacitated due to being strangled. George refused medical treatment. George also refused to write a statement and or sign any dating violence paperwork. Both Sarah or George stated they have been dating for approximately 1 year and 6 months, residing together approximately 1 year and 2 months. And the left side of George's neck was red, marking small abrasions and consistent with being strangled. Sarah's right eye is bruised and swollen from receiving an impact. Both Sarah and George allowed Deputy Sheriff Ramirez Delgado to take pictures of the injuries. Ramirez Delgado later uploaded the pictures to DataWorks. Both Sarah and George received victim rights booklets with the name and case number along with the photo injunction referral. Due to conflicting statements and injuries on both Sarah and George, I was unable to determine who the primary aggressor was. I placed both George and Sarah under lawful arrest and searched. George was placed into the back of my patrol car. Sarah was placed into the back of Ramirez Delgado's patrol car. I informed Sarah and George the charges that are being placed against them, which they stated they understood. Due to both parties refusing to write statements and or signing any domestic violence documents, I was unable to complete the victim's request for confidentiality forms, authorization for release of confidential information form, written statements. Both parties stated they don't want to testify and or prosecute each other. Both Sarah and George were transported to Orange County Booking and Receiving Center. George was booked and charged for battery, dating violence. Sarah was booked and charged for aggravated battery by strangulation. Both Sarah and George stated that they do not own firearms. My body-worn camera was activated. And there was video of all of this. I'm sure you guys have seen it. If you haven't seen it, I'll find it. When they pulled up, that was even more chaotic than the one when George was actually passed away. Okay. This crazy, right? Now, if you guys remember when Sarah was pro se and they were talking about previous violence, security risk, and all of those things, they talked about a time where she was under arrest for a felony. This is what they were talking about, okay? And it was undetermined. The case never went to trial. They both basically they didn't say they wouldn't cooperate with it, but they were not interested in cooperating or pursuing criminal charges. And because I guess they were arrested, but there was limited stuff that they could do. Um, this is stuff that's going to come out in this upcoming situation. Okay. So he had, what was it? I don't know that his was a felony. I think we'll look up George Torres too. In all fairness, we'll look up George because I'm sure someone would say, but you didn't look up George. Okay. George Torres. I'm going to be honest. I haven't even looked up George like once. Okay. Um, George Torres Jr. And I don't, in all fairness, I don't know if all of these George Torreses are the same. I would need to know a little bit more about his middle name or whatever. Let's see if I can figure anything out. I'll look into it. I'll look into it. His birth. Oh, this one might be him. I feel like his birthday was 4/23 based on some things I've seen. Maybe. No, 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 that's not right because he was born in 78. He was born 1978. So let me do some surfing around in all fairness to make sure that I identify because Jorge, that is a common name. Torres, and there are multiple records. There are like voluminous records with that name. So let me make sure that I'm finding the right person. Oh, you know what? Duh. Let me do my search with a birthday. But I just have the year. Okay. Back to my original thought. I'll do some research on George and see how the charges panned out against George. I'll find George's situation because I'm sure all of it's going to come up in the trial. So that was just something I wanted to bring up because we found out some new information this week and all of this is coming out. So since Monday, we all know what happened Monday, right? Monday, the jury selection process was halted, right? Monday, they started jury selection. And because of Milton coming through, they went ahead and suspended everything until this Monday. So, just to kind of get caught up, if you have not been paying attention to what's going on here, let me show you this. So, these are the minutes from Monday. And basically, what you may or may not know, so this is going to give you this basically what happened in court. So the defense, so there was some motion that was put out regarding Sarah's dress code, shackles, all of those things. So dress code, she is allowed to be in regular dress. That was like something that didn't need to be argued. As far as the shackles, she will be hand-free. She will have some sort of restraint, but it won't be visible to the jury. And as far as makeup, they can do makeup at the table, but as far as having a professional makeup, or makeup being done at the jail or at arriving at court, no. There's no clearance for that. It's considered contraband. She can't have makeup. She could wear makeup, but it can't be where she's carrying some sort of makeup into the jail and someone can't come do her makeup at the jail and there isn't a place for her to have makeup done at the jail. So if somebody gives her some lip gloss or something to put on, like the judge said, that's their business, but I'm starting court on time. So that matter was settled. The next thing is that the defendant was offered a deal. Okay. She was offered a deal. And let me show you this. It's on the docket, documented. It's not in detail right here. But basically, she was offered a 15-year plea deal and she turned it down. She's been in jail almost 5 years. She's a nut job. She's been in jail for almost 5 years. They gave her a deal of 15 years. In Florida, you have to do 85% of your sentence to completion. And she's already done damn near a third of it. If you think about it, 15 years, she's almost done 5, where she would only have to do 15%, 85%. So you're already looking at 3. So 15 years, 85% would be 12 years. You've done 5, like that's 7 years left, right? Simple math. Well, the offer is still good. Let's see. State placed offer on the record. Defendant rejected offer. Jury selection postponed until 10/14. So I don't know if the offer is still available between now and when court starts, but it's on the record. It's in the minutes. And I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be honest. To me, I think she made a huge mistake. And that's what everyone else is saying too. Because if they do not win, she could get minimum 22 years. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for making it official. Can you believe that? Minimum 22. So if it's 22, hold on. Uh okay, well let me do 22.5 minus 15% would be 19.125 minus, let's just say, 4.75. Well, she would still have 14 years. Do you imagine? She could get 7. She basically would be out in 7 years, a little over 7. If she's found guilty, she's going to have to do at least 14 years of 22, because she'll have credit for almost 5. Well, not quite, but I mean, she's just covered the threshold. She's 6 months in. She's 4.5 years in, right? And you have to do 15 years. You have to do 85%. So, if you're doing 85%, I mean, she's fucked. I don't know. It's not a smart move in the sense that it might not go your way, sis. I just think that she's such a freaking Karen that I think she's going to try to get her way on people seeing her way. And she thinks that she's going to Karen out of it. You know what I mean? I'm sorry. I don't care. People have a low tolerance for Karen. Just because Karens are white doesn't mean white people have not Karens aren't all white. This Karen is white, right? I think she thinks she's going to privilege her way out of there. We saw recently with Susan Lawrence. Susan Lawrence killed a black woman through a locked door. She had an all-white jury. 4 women, 6. Did she have an all-white jury? She had 6 white jurors. Everyone gave her guilty. People have a low tolerance for bullshit, and it's above and beyond racial lines. People are like, bullshit is bullshit, and you can't run with the race card. Okay? People are embarrassed that there are people out here behaving in such a manner. She tried to bring up illegal status. You're sitting up here, you got George Torres for your boyfriend. You are dry snitching on the neighbor, talking about he's illegal. You dry snitching on George, talking about he likes to listen to like James Owens, kind of low key. I don't know what kind of music he was listening to, but she's like, it's aggressive. Okay. So we don't know. We can infer what we thought. He could have been listening to death metal. We don't know. He could have been listening to heavy metal. We don't know what he was listening to, but we don't know. He could have been listening to reggaeton. We don't know what he was listening to, but she says he listens to aggressive music. So She's low-key racist. She's got a little bit of something going on, right? And I don't think people have a tolerance for it anymore. I think it was Lil Wayne. Whatever it was, ain't nobody here for it. Nobody's here for it. People are tired of this type of behavior across the board. And I think we've seen with a lot of jury decisions lately, everything is not perfect in the world, but we have seen that there is a growing lack of the appetite to absorb all of this type of stuff, and the privilege that some people thought that they once had is no longer. Okay, I'm just put it like that. I think she thinks she's going to hope to get a jury of people who are going to be sympathetic to her, but when they find out that this was a mutually toxic situation, it's going to be a problem. I don't think it's going to go her way. This is not a history where this man was solely victimizing her from the beginning. They were victimizing each other, and he's just as much battered as she was. This was a very toxic couple. Altogether, this was just a very toxic couple. I just want to see. I wonder if they noted on the original complaint how much George weighed 103 pounds. I wonder how much Sarah weighed, because Sir was 103 pounds. Okay. We know this whole story. This is the narrative of what happened that night. I just wonder how much she weighed. At the strangulation incident, she was weighing 130. George in the suitcase was 103 pounds. I'll have to review this. Next time we meet, I'll have that information. I'll have that data point. I just think it's interesting that they noted that George was 103 pounds. Because damn it, Sir was petite. Okay. And I don't know that she was 103. Okay, another thing. Let's talk about this. So the state filed. Who's calling me? Okay. So the state filed. So on the 6th, which was, is this it? Let me make sure I got the right thing. Okay, this was good. Okay. The state's motion in limine to exclude battered spouse syndrome evidence, exclude mention of battered spouse evidence until the defendant testifies to a justifiable use of deadly force. So they're going to go into some tea that I didn't know about. Okay. You guys tell me if you knew about it. The defendant has filed a notice and an amended notice of her intent to rely on battered spouse syndrome evidence in this case. The battered spouse syndrome is not actually a defense to a crime. This was quite interesting. Let me make it smaller so you guys can see a little better. Can I move this over? No. Hold on. All right, let me move. All right, I'm going to just stay right here. Make myself smaller. Okay. Make myself small. Okay. The introduction of the battered spouse syndrome evidence is to support a self-defense theory, is not for the purpose of justifying a defendant's misperception of reality. Let me tell you how snarky that you like Will Wooten getting snarky, baby. Is it Mr. J or is it Mr. Cacciatore who wrote this? Hold on. Girl, it is William Robert J. He's not playing with her, okay? Along with Judge Cranick. But he says the introduction of the battered spouse syndrome evidence to support a self-defense theory is not for the purpose of justifying a defendant's misperception of reality or to explain why an unreasonable belief of nonetheless justifiable due to her condition. Rather, the Florida Supreme Court has sanctioned the use of battered spouse syndrome to show why the defendant's actions were reasonable, to show in spite of a reasonable perception of danger from the battering spouse, the battered defendant would remain in the home with their batterer, where she may resort to the exertion of force against him to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm. Like she stated, when George would have a fit or they would get into it, she would go over to Brian's house. So if you were in imminent danger or there was something going on, why didn't you go run over to your ex-husband's house? That's what everybody wants to know. Okay. So this is what they say some of the facts are. This is some information we didn't know because we didn't hear. All we've heard is Sarah's version of the story, right? And it's funny that oftentimes when we hear that narrative and we hear that story over and over and over again, that's what we're like, oh yeah, but that's what they said happened. You forget that sometimes you don't have a what? A reliable narrator. Judge Cranick said that he found her story to be uncredible, right? The defendant has presented several accounts of what happened on February 23rd, 2020. The defendant has presented several accounts. So her story has changed numerous times, okay? She made a 911 call at approximately 1 p.m. on February 24th on 2020, spoke with a patrol deputy on a body-worn camera shortly thereafter. The good thing is everything's documented, right? Girl. Provided a statement to the detectives a few hours later on February 24th, 2020, and provided a second statement to detectives February 25th, 2020. The defendant retained Julie Harper as one of her battered spouse syndrome experts in 2020. Over the course of the next several years, okay, Dr. Harper interviewed the defendant about the events on February 23rd multiple times. Exhibit A at the hearing on this motion will be Dr. Harper's deposition, which was taken October 1st, 2024. The state would direct the court to pages 35, 37, 39, multiple pages of Dr. Harper's deposition for the defendant's statements on February 23rd. The state retained Dr. Tanya Werner as its battered spouse syndrome expert. Dr. Werner evaluated the defendant on October 2nd, 2024. Dr. Werner was deposed on October 4th, 2024. Exhibit B at the hearing on this motion will be Dr. Werner's deposition. The state would direct the court to pages 75 through 79. I cannot wait till they present this evidence. Dr. Werner's deposition for the defendant's statement about February 23rd, 2020. The state is not asking the court to make any credibility determinations about the defendant's statements to the doctors. That would be for the jury to do in the full context of the cross-examination with the defendant's statements to the law. What the state is asserting is that as a matter of law, what the defendant told the doctors does not entitle her to a self-defense instruction, nor does it entitle her to introduce evidence prior to instances of violence, reputation evidence of the decedent's violence, or battered spouse syndrome evidence. I don't know why I have so much trouble saying that. To help the jury understand why she did was objectively reasonable. This is what I'm going to say regarding number 7. If she brings in any of George's aggression or violence to her, do you imagine if they bring in 2018 with the felony strangulation? So if you're going to talk about 2018, they're going to talk about 2018. And that's just not the only one. But I don't know that George had any felonies levied against him due to her. He ended up going to battered spouse, but it's quite possible. And it's not to say that he didn't do anything wrong. I'm not going to say that. But what I'm saying is that I think as a man, they probably, he got battered, he had to go to a program. And I don't know that she had to go to anything. It's been said that she coached George on how to drop the charges. So where she would bail him out, I don't know that she gave as many statements to have him. And there were times where she did try to work to get him out of the trouble from a night of drinking. So anyway, I just think it's interesting that she's going to go with battered spouse, because oftentimes these situations were ended because she would bail him out, she would drop the charges, he would bail her out. So it's been a mutually toxic situation. And then George is the one who ended up dead. George is the one who was 103 pounds. I don't know if George got the short end of the stick because he was the man, and it just looks worse for a man to be in this type of situation with a woman. But it seems as though she has definite aggression. Let me continue reading. The defendant told the doctors that because of the past violence between her and the decedent, she had a generalized fear every day of the decedent, every day that the decedent would cause her seriously bodily harm or kill her. However, on this particular day, the decedent did not take an overt action, even in the slightest, that made her believe he would cause her seriously bodily harm or death. According to the defendant, she According to the defendant, when she and the decedent woke up, the decedent wanted to drink alcohol. She did not. So, in order to distract the decedent, she suggested that they instead clean the defendant's townhome, which they did. At the conclusion of the cleaning, the decedent still wished to consume alcohol, so the two of them began consuming alcohol. The defendant did not want to consume alcohol, but she did so to placate the decedent. The alcohol that was consumed was a Chardonnay bottle of Woodridge. In order to prevent the decedent from becoming sad or upset, she kept diverting him by smoking cigarettes with him, drinking, and enjoying each other's company, perhaps using the dartboard on the porch and doing other arts and crafts and puzzles. Although it apparently would upset the decedent, the defendant suggested he called his daughter, who did not like talking to him when he was drinking, or that he call his brother to tell his brother that the decedent had dragged the defendant down the stairs the night before. So she knows that George's daughter doesn't like to talk to him drunk, but she's encouraging him to call his daughter. Also, he knows that the Torres family don't fuck with her. And she thought it was a good idea to tell George to call his brother, who seems like he doesn't play that shit, and tell him that he dragged Sarah down the stairs. But that's also debatable. We don't really know that that happened, right? Having done these playful activities for numerous hours, there became a point where the defendant and the decedent were sitting on the couch in the downstairs living room, and the decedent tagged her and said, "You're it." From past games of hide and seek, the defendant understood this meant that he wanted to play hide and seek. She begrudgingly engaged in the game, as with everything else, to placate the decedent. She ran up to the shower. After becoming cold and perhaps some misunderstanding about the rules of hide and seek, she left the shower upstairs and returned downstairs to find the decedent placing himself in a suitcase to hide. At the time of the death, the decedent was only 103 pounds, with an alcohol level of 0.138. So almost like 0.138 grams per deciliter. The defendant saw him doing this and decided to zip the suitcase shut while the decedent was inside. They were both laughing, and there was still no animus between them on that day. The defendant states she did not zip it completely shut. The decedent was able to poke a couple of fingers through the gap left by the zipper. And then the decedent said he could not breathe. The decedent obviously got mad about not being able to breathe. The decedent's getting mad made the defendant get mad. This reminded her of past violence the decedent committed against her, causing her to be unable to breathe at those times. This made her angry. The decedent shook the suitcase. She lost control, and the suitcase flipped. She hit the decedent's fingertips with the wooden baseball bat that was in the room. Now, after having committed the independent forcible felonies of aggravated assault, aggravated battery, and forcible felony of false imprisonment, the defendant believed the decedent would kill her. So they've given her 3 more felonies, okay? 3 more felonies they did not charge her with: aggravated assault, aggravated battery, and forcible felony of false imprisonment. So she actually, that whole second degree could be second degree murder on top of these other 3, right? But after she beat him in the suitcase, now she's afraid. Okay. Despite believing the decedent would kill her, the defendant flipped the suitcase over so it was right side up, and she believed the decedent would be able to let himself out. The defendant's specific intent was for the defendant to feel like it was like for her to choke and not be able to breathe. She intended for him to feel this for 2 minutes and believe that he would let himself out. And when that happened, if she died, she died. She did not intend to kill him, and she did not believe that leaving the decedent in the predicament would kill him. His death was an accident. Battered spouse syndrome evidence is inadmissible if the defense is an accident. She said how many times it was an accident? Battered spouse is because you were in imminent fear, danger, and she's using this defense, but she says it was an accident. She was trying to prove a point. She was trying to show him. She wanted him to see. She was punishing him. She was punishing him and trying to prove a point, right? Battered spouse evidence. So that's not battered spouse, right? That is second degree murder or depraved mind, right? Battered spouse syndrome evidence is inadmissible if the defense is an accident rather than self-defense. The defendant's testimony is that she intentionally zipped the suitcase out of levity and while kidding around with the defendant during a friendly game of hide and seek. Then when the decedent informed her that he could not breathe, she intentionally decided out of anger to make him feel like he's trapped in there for a couple of minutes while she beat and shook the suitcase and hit his hand with a baseball bat. This is aggravated assault, aggravated battery, and false imprisonment. She stated that she flipped the suitcase right side up, saw that the decedent could get 2 fingers through the opening, and she went upstairs to bed believing that he would be able to get out in a couple of minutes. She had no intention to kill him, no intention to leave him trapped inside the suitcase. She did not even comprehend that he could die from this. The defendant is thus still saying to the decedent's death was an accident, and she's not entitled to an instruction of self-defense or to supplement a self-defense cause with reputation evidence, specific instances of past violence, or battered spouse syndrome evidence. The defendant's statement that she perpetually lived in a state of fear of the defendant is not sufficient to allow for a self-defense instruction, and all of the ancillary evidence of reputation, testimony, specific acts of past violence, and battered syndrome testimony. However, before a defendant may introduce evidence of a victim's character, he must first show that there was an overt act by the victim at or about the time that the incident that reasonably indicated a need for self-defense. But they were doing art projects. Like, where was the situation? He tagged you and said you're it. Was she mad because he didn't come find her in the shower? Like, what did he do? What set you off, sis? Because there's nothing in any of the versions of the stories that you've said that make sense, right? Comparing the facts of those cases, it is clear that there was not even a slightest overt act by the decedent in this case. Prior to the defendant committing aggravated assault, aggravated battery, and false imprisonment, there was no imminent threat from the decedent. Period. Okay? And they cite some law. You can read all of this. If the evidence is improperly admitted, it would be a departure from the essential requirements of the law, which would result in irreparable harm that cannot be corrected by a post-judicial appeal. The state acknowledges that the defendant is entitled to change her story yet again. So if the court does not exclude this evidence now, the defendant should be barred from mentioning battered spouse syndrome evidence until the defendant testifies to something that is justifiable use of deadly force. Period. And that's it. I certify that a copy of this has been furnished to James. I don't know why Sarah didn't take that deal. And this was posted. Let's go back to the docket real quick. This was posted on Sunday. So when they got to court, I mean, James Owens might not have read it yet, but I'm sure he's read it since then. She declined the offer, which I don't know if it's still on the table or not available to her, but sis is fucked. I mean, like, seriously. I don't know. I just wonder if between now and Monday, we're going to hear that maybe they tried to accept the offer. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying that that's what they're going to do at all, but I just wonder if James Owens and Mr. Henderson are having a come to Jesus with her, that the world is a different place than it was 5 years ago. There is really no place, people have no appetites for Karens anymore across the board. Ain't nobody checking for you and all of your Karenism and entitlement and all of these things. And there is no guarantee that you are not going to have your ass served to you when the gavel hits. Okay. They did not, I mean, if someone, and rightfully so, however they decided to refer to her, remember in 2018, she had a felony strangulation charge on him. You know what I mean? Like, on his neck. She was arrested for felony strangulation on George, and George had a dating domestic violence, and they basically, I wouldn't say they dropped charges on each other, but they were unable to pursue because they were not trying to really cooperate. But she was given a serious felony charge. Why they couldn't pursue without, but maybe because he's a victim and the victim no longer wanted to participate, they kind of had to let it go. But it's documented, right? Um, she's screwed. She's screwed. Um, yeah. She, we're gonna keep our eye on this, of course. Monday's coming. We're gonna see. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not gonna be surprised if all of a sudden in the next couple of days we hear that she took the offer, or they made the offer available to her. Um, if they go to court with this, I mean, she's it's just going to be the realization or the actualization of what we already think is going to happen. Sis is going down. Like, this is not going to be good for her, because to get the battered spouse, when they enter George's information about what he's had in his past and what's gone on, there's no way of talking about George as it pertains to Sarah without talking about her, because oftentimes it was a mutual battery type situation, um, that they were battering each other. And yes, George was 103 pounds. Yes, yes, yes. Mm-mm-mm. Anyway, I think that's everything. Um, That's pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about today. I'm going to let you guys go. I'm going to come back in like 10, 15 minutes. We got some, I'm going to check the docket real quick just to make sure I'm not missing anything for Nesto. And we have another visit. Okay. I don't know. I haven't found a vintage. I haven't found a call for us to go back and revisit. I feel like I put a couple to the side, but my brain is like, ooh, right now. So I don't have it. um, I'm gonna check my queue, but we're gonna just look at a new visit. Okay. All right, guys. I will see you back and we will kick off Bougie Gang lunch, but I did not want to go and skip to that and then not get to this. So I hope you're enjoying these Sarah Boone updates. This is a big case. I think it's very important because a lot of times we don't get to see the other side of domestic violence, which is the man losing his life. George was a victim of domestic violence, even though George was also an aggressor too. I'm not saying or asking anyone to feel sorry for him, but his family is hurting too. They knew that he was involved in a volatile situation. They knew that he was involved with someone who did not bring the best out in him. And I think that um, he is just as much of a victim as Sarah was at any point, and Sarah is trying to use a loophole to make an excuse for what she did, which what she did was very wrong. She had no right to take this man's life. She had no right to take him away from his children. She had no right to do any of the things that she did. And she's trying to make it through a loophole to make that okay. And it's not okay what she did. And she's going to have to sit and talk to Judge Cranick and a jury of her peers, and they're going to make a decision if that is the case, because it was a mutually toxic situation. She took advantage of George's intoxication, or George's love for her, their sick love that they had, and she tricked him, and she's going to need to come up with a reason that makes sense, that people can believe, as to why it was a good idea to zip him up in a suitcase, and that she felt danger to the point where it made it okay to activate the battered syndrome. And once they activate battered syndrome, they're going to talk about her, like they're going to talk about his character, then they're going to talk about hers, because the situations that she's going to bring up all involved her. And oftentimes they were both in these situations together being aggressive. um, I believe her. Jenny knows what they're going to lose and is determined to give the best defense possible. I think I missed the beginning of the the comments, so I'm not sure what that's in reference to. When I go back on the replay, Sarah's letting herself up to exactly where she needs to be. Girl, look, she was offered her privilege offered her 15 years, okay? Because there's been plenty of women who have dealt with horrible situations and had to do just what she did. You know, we saw Burning Bed back in the day. We've seen where maybe there was not an aggressive situation, but the woman was in fear. We've seen many, many women have long jail sentences, life in prison, and were getting the soup beat out of them. Okay. And had an aggressor that they had to take out. This is not, it's not going to work well for her because maybe for some people, but at the moment you have to have something that kicked off that made it reasonable for it to be self-defense. Self-defense is not after the fact. Self-defense is during a confrontation situation. That's just the law. And we've seen a lot of women who are serving long sentences, who have been victimized by their husbands or their spouse, whomever, their partner, their domestic partner, and it's been horrible. I don't know that she falls into that. I don't see her in that same light as some people, as some others. And that's just my opinion. This is my opinion on that. Anyway, I'm gonna let you guys go. Give me about 5-10 minutes to get myself together, and I'll be back on some Nesto and Sonia in a bit. The live is already set up, so I will see you guys in a little bit, guys. Hit the thumbs up for me because likes do matter. I really appreciate y'all, and we'll get back into it. She believes that she has suffered enough, and can you believe that? George died because of dealing with her, and she feels like 4 years in jail pending judgment is good enough. No, sis, you're going to get your judgment and then you're going to get whatever they give you, which is either time in jail or trying to figure out life outside of jail, because we don't know. Brian Boone could have already moved on. Lucas is already a high schooler, and we don't know how Lucas feels about his mother. There's already some tension between Brian Boone. There's not the good, I wouldn't like, let's just say whatever the co-parenting that they had going on, I don't know is going to exist in the future. Let's just say Sarah Boone walked out of jail, right? She's still a drunk. She's only not a drunk at the moment because guess what? She doesn't have access, right? We don't know that she has been treated for her alcoholic ways, and we don't know that Brian Boone is going to have the door open for her to help her with her bills. She was getting some sort of alimony payment. She was getting child support, even though she was not primary. All of that has since stopped. So she's going to have a hard time as a unskilled, low skilled, someone who has disappeared from society for 4.5 years with no explanation other than I was in jail for 4.5 years. I wasn't convicted, let's just say, of murder, of second-degree murder, and trying to go get a job. This chick she doesn't understand anything. She doesn't even qualify for like a good phone job. She has limited critical thinking. Like I don't know what she's gonna do. So that's not something she really has to worry about, because I don't know what the likelihood is of her being cleared, but we'll cross that bridge very soon. Anyway, like I said, I'm not going to be surprised if she takes the deal, because I think that James is probably filibustering her right now into the reasons why it would be a good idea to take it, and all of the reasons why it's not a good idea to continue, because the likelihood is slim to none. I just think that either way, she has painted herself into a corner, and I don't think that she understands that, sis, it's not going to work the way you think you want it to, right? I'll save that for another time. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna let you guys go so we won't be too late for lunch. I'll see you guys in about 10-15 minutes over there. Okay, guys, I'll see you later. Bye, guys.
Walk it like I talk it. 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 Walk it like I talk it.